Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. I'm grabbing my tea. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we're going back to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we do, the usual disclaimers. First off, you are going to see the link to this report right there in the description box, alongside the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject. And don't forget, folks, the templates are extremely important right now. Coming up this May is when everything goes on the Massachusetts Senate floor, so please get it done. And we have the ever-present, self-explanatory, change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. Folks, when we talk about the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones, all right? It is 5:08 in the afternoon. As usual, I am brain dead. I work for a call center. When you enter a call center, I do believe that they should give you like a lifetime prescription to Prozac. So if I stumble over any of my words, folks, my apologies in advance, all right? We're going to where we left off yesterday. Notes on the state of exception and bare life. So here we go. Our description of the JRC as the camp highlights the casual normalization of some of the most egregious forms of punishment meted out to children and young adults outside of the traditional spaces of incarceration like prisons and asylums. We underscore the fact that the JRC was conceived of as an education center of last resort. Bullshit. For children and young adults whose behaviors place them outside the boundaries of protection from inhumane treatment. Recognizing this terrifying reality, we ask, on what grounds are children and young adults diagnosed with intellectual disabilities, mental illness, and autism located outside the pale of the protection from the law? Thank you. Thank you. And what ontological assumptions regarding being disabled make these forms of punishment justifiable? Thank you. To answer these questions, we turn to Agabin's 1998 book, Homo Sacer. Agabin, 1998, Homo Sacer, by distinguishing between two terms that the Greek used to describe life, zoe, the simple fact of living or the natural life, and bios, the political life. The distinction is significant because in the classical world, the simple natural life, zoe, is excluded from the polis and confirmed to the ecos, or home as reproductive life. Agabin, 1998, then extends Foucault's depiction of biopolitics as a process which zoe gets included in the mechanism and calculation of state power to bring society into the threshold of biological modernity. Punishment, one of the tools of biopolitics, was used to correct subjects according to their unique potential, Lewis 2006, rather than confine individuals who committed infractions against normative order. Extending Foucault's analysis, Agabin 1998 defines the state of exception as the preliminary condition for any definition of the relation that binds, and at the same time abandons the living being to law. To create a zone of distinction that is not a dictatorship, but a space devoid of law, a zone of autonomy in which all legal determinations, and above all the very distinction between public and private, are deactivated. Whew. This zone of distinction is a no man's land where surveying deploys the power of the state to decide which lives are worthy of living and therefore protected by the state, and which lives exist outside the purview of state protection beyond the law, and who may be killed yet not sacrificed, for fuck's sake. This state of exception does not refer to an exclusion, but rather an abandonment that implies survival in a legal limbo, where life is held in suspension, neither inside or outside, the poles, neither fully alive nor dead. You fucking bastards. That's what the JRC does, folks. Lewis 2006. More troubling is the recognition that the very concept of democracy rests on defining the good life of the polis against what is not there, bare life. As such, democracy and its other state of exception mutually coexist, constituted by and constituting the relationship between the violence and constitutes power and the violence that preserves it. Agabin, 1998. Agabin, 1998 also introduces the notion of the camp to delineate the biopolitical borders that sketch out the zones of indistinction that constitute bare life. The camp has its historical roots in spaces of exclusion, uh, demarcated for prisoners of war and insurrectionists, the segregated ghettos and concentration camps like Auschwitz that housed Jews in Nazi Germany, and more recently Guantanamo Bay that has housed Afghan prisoners and is administered by the U.S. military. In each of these spaces, claiming exceptional circumstances, legal protection for the inhabitants of these camps are suspended, the state of exception. Thus, the camp continues to exist not as a historical fact, an anomaly belonging to the past, even if still verifiable, but in some way as the hidden matrix and nomos of the political space in which we are still living. Agabin, 1998. Here in the camp, the normal order is suspended such that it is impossible to distinguish fact and law, rule and application, exception and rules, which nevertheless incessantly decides between them. The camp, then, is no longer a desolate place, but rather a dislocating localization that in recent years has become a permanent space of exception, a stable spatial arrangement inhabited by bare life that more and more can no longer be inscribed as the judicio-political order. In other words, folks, they place us disabled people outside the natural order. And why do they do that, folks? Because they don't see disabled people as people. I'm going to spell it out for you. Why is there double standards all along the way for disabled kids? Why is any treatment goes when it comes to disabled kids? Because we're not seen as people. They don't consider our lives worthy of protecting. And why don't they think so, folks? Well, that's capitalism for you. The value that this world currently puts on people has to do with what we can produce or if there's an agenda that we can push. That's it. That's it, and that's all. All right, moving on. In another departure from faculty, Agabin argues that in the state's exception, new subjectives are not constituted, but rather citizens are stripped of all subjectivity. The Agabin, citing Prime Levi, describes the most extreme figure of the cap inhabitant as the Muslim, a being from whom humiliation, horror, and fear had so taken away all consciousness, such as he exists, at the extreme limit of pain, where nothing remains but conditions of time and space. The figure of the Museman, as described by Agabin, however, rejects the possibility of theorizing a resisting agent, notwithstanding one's location within the state of exception. Thus, in the next action of this paper, we will discuss the parallels between Agabin's depiction of the camp and JRC and explore the ontological implication for the respective inhabitants. So we'll stop that right there and we're going to break into it, okay? This is very interesting, folks, because I have witnessed it, been a victim of it, and have fought against it my whole life, in some capacity or another. The way our schools, our capital political systems, the way the outside world views disabled people as a whole. And this is from years and years of observation, working inside and outside of the field, being a person with a disability myself, and studying it on a broader scale throughout various eyes on the internet, books, what have you. The way I see it, and the way the medical model sees it, Our worth is determined not by our innate human dignity that belongs to every human being, but our value is determined by what we can produce and if we fit some sort of agenda. You see, every voting cycle, suddenly disabled people become human long enough for one political party or another to tote us around and use us to push one agenda or another. Afterwards, and during this time, when we try to bring up our issues, nobody listens. And then when they're done using us for their campaigns, they put us back away behind closed doors and once again forget we exist. They don't protect us, folks, because they don't see us as people. They don't see us as people because they can't comprehend nor understand this idea that people with disabilities in and of themselves have value, because the only thing they value is production, money, and pushing forward agendas. That's it. That's all there is. And if they are looking you as the other, if they're looking at you as somebody they don't believe can produce, not somebody that they would be able to use to be able to do something for them. Yeah, yeah. They send us to these places, these camps, as it were, because out of sight, out of mind. But we'll move on here. I'll get into that on another day. We are not valued in the same way that normal people are valued. We are used as objects of pity, used as inspiration porn for normal people to feel better about themselves. People will use us even to literally say that our existence is there in order to exalt and make the non disabled person a better person. Any concept of us having value as we are, as individuals, as people, not because of how we affect this person or that person, not because of our production, is completely alien to these folks. They feel like if we cannot live, talk, walk, speak, act like them, that we can't possibly live productive, fulfilling lives. And even though they don't say it, on a subconscious level, they just think, like it said in Animal Farm, folks, some animals are more equal than others. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and close out this evening. We don't get very many views on this channel, and especially on this subject. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time, so please don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time tonight. As always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.